I mentioned the story about how we met. Why don't you tell that story?
I was looking for a job, and you had the bright idea hiring two videographers to do the same job and have them duke it out.
I think this is funny. You think it's
It's
funny
funny
too?
now. At the
What
time,
happened?
I was like, what the heck is going on?
Peace, and welcome. Welcome to another episode of Cook on Quarantine. This is an in-house episode because you're going to meet the mastermind behind the Cook on Monday morning production, Mr. Topete. I've known since, I want to say the summer of 2019. And I want to get into the story about how we met, but I found this incredibly talented diamond in the rough, languishing his incredible skills and obscurity, and then I brought him into the mainstream.
Yeah, if that's the way you want to call it, sure.
It's been a great honor to get to know this young man and work with him closely. We've gotten to know each other personally, and he is the videographer for Cook on Monday morning. So everything that anyone sees related to the production, pretty much David did. How I record, the equipment that I'm using, how things go up, what decisions were made. He pretty much helped guide me through this whole process and has also been putting together great content that people are most impressed by when they see the production. So we're going to get to know him a little bit, get into his story. We talk a little bit about our journey working together, but all the things that excite him and that he's passionate about. So Mr. Topete, thank you.
Thank you for having me on.
We were joking before we started that you pretty much know where this conversation is going to go.
I feel like I could interview myself at this point. And it's going to be weird. I'm going to be looking at that camera, not at my webcam. I'll try. It's going to be weird because I'm also filming it myself here to make it look better than webcam footage.
So I mentioned the story about how we met. Why don't you tell that story?
I was looking for a job. I had just been, I was an HR assistant for the 49ers. I used to work in their food and beverage department, and I used to be an HR assistant there. And they weren't the best company, let's just say that. So everybody got fired, basically. I already graduated for about 2 years. So I felt it was about time to kind of spread my wings and fly, so to speak. So I decided to not reapply and then became unemployed for like a year doing the freelance thing. So I was getting some gigs here and there, but then I was looking for something more consistent. And somewhere around in April of 2019, I think, or no, it was probably before that, March, I was looking through Indeed. I saw an ad for a company called Mission Bit, which you've talked about a lot on the podcast. But I saw an ad, I applied, got a call back, and you had the bright idea hiring two videographers to do the same job and have them duke it out.
I'm sorry. All right. I wanted to be clear because I think this is funny. You think it's funny
funny
too.
Now. At the time, I was like, what the heck is going on?
So I hired two videographers. Go ahead.
So yeah, you had a test run, basically. So you had an event called the MLK Codes Day where you guys it was a workshop for a bunch of smaller group of kids, like I think it was middle schoolers, something like that. And you just wanted to capture the event. And I was like, cool, I can do that. So I brought my gear, showed up, met Christina, which is the now CEO, at the time not CEO. And she was great. And I also met the other guy that was there. And I was like, are we working together? Are we hashing it out? What's going on? I was like, and he was like, I'm just here to film it. I'm like, me too. I did the best I could. And I felt like I did a pretty good job. And the rest is history because I've been working with Mission Bit now for a year now, and I'm still working with them. Now I'm working with you.
Yeah, yeah. And so my thinking behind the sort of competition approach to the hiring process, a hiring process is a competition, like kind of anyway. Like people are vetting multiple applicants. Anybody that sort of does like a vendor creative thing, you never really know. At least my experience has been, you don't know what the quality is going to be until the thing is done, and you kind of want to get a sense of how they work as a person. Are they going to show up on time? Are they going to meet their deadline? Or am I going to have to like chase a person? Are they going to be professional? And so you get people from all different walks of life, and having more than one person film an event, it was like, okay, like we're a nonprofit, we don't have a ton of money, but if we can pay both of them to do something, we get the content that we want, and we can get a better sense of how the person works, which is ultimately the basis of any successful partnership. Because I don't think I dealt with you directly like that much when all that started. I think Christina was doing a lot for the organization. She now runs the organization.
She was the main point of contact. Yeah.
Yeah. There you go. And so I actually, when I saw the video you made, I thought it was the other guy, you know? And when I saw the video, I was like, yo, this shit is fire. We got to bring this dude back. And I thought you were the other guy.
That guy technically had better equipment too.
Yeah.
I've never seen the
Well,
video.
yeah.
I've never seen the video, but he did have a better camera than I did at the time.
Well, it was, I mean, respect to his process and journey, but it was your what you put together was far superior. And we all felt like, everyone that watched it felt like touched, like because I've had a lot of video projects from Mission Bit in the past, and even with that, what you did, it was night and day compared to the past production. I wasn't alone. I think that's why you're still working with Mission Bit now. People still, because Christina's changed over a lot of stuff to kind of improve and shift things to the direction that she sees fit. But you've been consistent because the quality, it was dope. It was like really good, And so our partnership was formed. I just kind of want to say that, like, even your impression then, right, is why we still work together. So I never actually got into how you started to really do filmmaking, because you're not primarily a filmmaker, and I want to talk about your band and everything, but
I do a lot of things.
yeah. Let's start with the filmmaking stuff, and then we'll do the rest of your creative pursuits.
Sure. I think with like any normal wannabe, or not wannabe, but aspiring filmmaker, they all start with a few particular films they see as a child, where they get inspired to become a filmmaker. And for me, it was definitely Star Wars and Back to the Future and anything involving Spielberg or George Lucas. They created these amazing worlds that were like, they're literally out of this world, right? So that just inspired me to like learn more about the process. So I got really involved in knowing like the behind the scenes stuff. So I used to watch a lot of behind the scenes content on DVD. Used to like read a lot on forums back when I was like 12 years old. And I started wanting to be in special effects. I quickly learned that I was terrible at that. But when it comes to doing special effects, yeah, I obviously had to shoot something to kind of composite it in. And that means kind of superimposing the images that I want to put on the screen. You have to do video editing to do that. So I would shoot something, edit it, and then do the very crappy visual effects graphics. I did that for a little bit. And then when I went to high school, I took video production. And the first year I kind of didn't like take it too seriously. Second year I did. I kind of became the director, and we did a lot of the broadcasting every Friday for the programming. We did skits, and that's kind of where I got my experience kind of doing stuff with a grueling schedule, because you would basically on Tuesday, we would like meet to like think of a concept, shoot it, and then I'd take the next day to edit it. And this is all in like one class period, So like you got like very strict deadlines to meet to Friday, because you got to have content for it. So then I naturally was like, all right, well, let me try this filmmaking thing. And I went to college for it, and I went to San Francisco State, and I got my Bachelor's of Arts in cinema, and that's kind of where I was in 2016. Like I said earlier, I was still working as an HR assistant. Eventually, kind of was like, at some point, I needed to start my career, and basically, my being fired kind of kickstarted that.
Yeah, I actually didn't. Yeah, I had no idea you went to undergrad for filmmaking, but SF State does have a very well regarded filmmaking department, and a lot of independent filmmakers come out of SF State. Well, one of the things that you often do for our podcast video interviews is just like insert photos, but there's like a way to do it. I don't know. I feel like there's like levels. There's like definitely different, because that can be really corny. That can come off like really kind of cheesy, or if it's not good. But there's like a tempo and timing that you have created in your editing that I think is like subtle, but it's really clean. And it reminds me of Spike Lee. Like when I watch Spike Lee films and I'll see him insert photos in his in whatever film he's doing. Are you at all interested in doing feature-length films? Is that something that you want to step into?
I think at some point, yes, I'm interested in doing feature films, but I'm more interested in doing feature documentaries. I have a very heavy documentary background. I love documentary work, and that's why I eventually started studying more documentary stuff in college. And I watched like 5 documentaries every week. I just love the formula, and because I like to learn, and I'm a visual learner, and that's what documentaries do for me. Instead of reading a book, I just watch a documentary. And if I really want to invest myself on a subject, I'll then go read a book about it. But documentary work for me is kind of like where I'm really trying to get to, because a lot of what I do right now is also kind of music documentary stuff just for my band. And I would say yes, just not right now, because right now I am primarily focused more on music, even though like me as like the film guy. Music is kind of a young man's game, to be honest, right now, at least in the genre that I'm kind of trying to get into. And I feel that I can be a filmmaker when I'm in my mid 40s and still be fine. Whereas music, you kind of have to take advantage of the years you have right now, which is my mid 20s.
I think the documentary approach to various different types of lifestyles has really helped set different entities apart. Like with the UFC, for example, the Ultimate Fighting Championship, their popularity really started to grow after they did like that reality show that called The Ultimate Fighter, where they kind of got to know the people. You get to see what's going on outside of just what's happening in the cage. Like you get to hear people's stories. You doing that for your band is really dope. What has the reception been like? Like what are sort of the projects look like?
A lot of what we do now, or at least what I do for the band, is anytime we go record a new song or new single, I'm documenting the process. So it's basically like a behind the scenes look on the recording process. And the benefit of me having the background that I do is I don't really see a lot of bands doing it, just because it costs a lot to actually have a documentary crew come and film you and document you. And it's just a lot of time. Documentaries take a lot of time. When you see the behind the scenes that I do for our band, I'm kind of like a fly on the wall. Even though you might hear me comment here and there, I mostly just kind of like you talk about the the UFC thing, where I kind of just let the things play out. So you kind of see my band members sometimes talk to the camera or interact with the producer or the engineer, and I'm kind of just letting them do the thing, and I'm just kind of hiding behind the camera. And that has allowed our fans to kind of have a different connection to our music, because like I said, a lot of artists don't do that just because it costs a lot. And when they do, it's kind of half-assed. I ain't gonna lie. Like there's a lot of behind the scenes that bands do sometimes, but it's kind of like a 2-minute thing. It's not very in depth, and it doesn't resonate well with me. And I appreciate any insight, because I like to learn like the ins and outs of any creative's process. But I feel like by me having this background and also having a music background really allows our fans to just really, really connect with us in a different way.
So what's the name of the band?
So my band's name is First in Flight, and we're based here in the San Francisco Bay Area, and we are a dance rock band. That's what we call ourselves. But we really kind of mesh a lot of different genres while still being mainstream. The common thing that we tell people is that two metal heads and two jazz heads came together and created a band. So take that as you will.
And what instrument do you play?
I'm the bassist. And before you ask, yes, I do slap the bass.
I wasn't going to ask that, but that's probably like a common question for people that know rock music to ask a bass player. But like, I think one of the great things about our relationship, like we have completely different, not completely different, but what you're really into in music, I'm not at all exposed to.
Yeah.
and so and so I learned a lot. But let's get into like the music journey. So do you play other instruments besides the bass?
I do dabble with guitar here and there, but I think bass is my main instrument for sure.
Mm-hmm. And how did you get into the bass?
That's also kind of a funny story.
Okay.
My dad brought a guitar from work one time because he works as a warehouse or a maintenance manager at an apartment complex. And sometimes people just leave stuff, and there was a guitar, and he brought it over, started playing with it, learned a few chords, whatever. Had a couple friends. This is about maybe like 14, when I was about 14 or 15 years old. They were like, hey, you got a guitar, now let's go jam. We're like, okay. So I went, jammed out. We maybe jammed, for about a month. We were terrible, but that's besides the point. Fast forward, maybe like a week later, my buddy comes over and he's like, guys, guess what? I'm like, what? And he said, I just traded my neighbor a tire for a bass. And I was like, what? What do you mean you traded a tire for a bass? He's like, he needed a spare tire. I had one in my garage. He gave me a bass and amp. But I'm like, okay, first of all, cool. And second of all is like, what the heck's a bass? I had like no context of that. But, I plucked the string, and then, I don't know. You just, sometimes when you just put something in your hands, you get like a calling for it. That's kind of what happened with me. I was like, I like this. So ever since then, I became a bass player. That band quickly dissolved, so I didn't really actually have a bass until like a year after that. But I saved up my money. I was like, I'm gonna buy a bass. So I bought kind of a cheap starter $150 bass, and I've been playing since I was 15, and that's a decade now.
Yeah, you're a young man, 25, 26, great editor, bass player. So did you teach yourself? You learned online? Like, how'd you learn?
I learned myself. Everything that I do primarily is just stuff that I teach myself. I'm very driven, and I like to know a lot. I know a lot about random things. A lot of it's because I didn't necessarily have a lot of money growing up, so I couldn't just get lessons for everything. But I had access to the internet, and the internet's a great tool. So I used to just look up how to do things, whether it was on YouTube or forums, and pretty quickly I taught myself. I mean, I honestly, to this day, I don't know music theory. I don't know how to read. I just have a very good ear. That's another good thing. I have a very good sense of rhythm, and my ear, I can hear something and then quickly play it, which is, a lot of people don't have that benefit. I'm very grateful that I have that. Otherwise, I'd be completely lost, to be honest.
Yeah. I'm not, from teaching me stuff, I'm not that learner at all. I need to be told exactly what it is, and then retold and then retold. And so you teach yourself the guitar. You are sort of in and out of bands. Like how many bands have you played in before you got to this one?
7.
7 bands. Okay.
Yeah.
What are some of the reasons why your band experience hasn't been consistent?
It's just commitment, Being in a band it's kind of no different than being in a business with somebody, At least that's how I treat it. And that's why my band now has been as successful, as everybody has the same mindset. We put our egos aside, and we're here to be a business, basically, because you got to show up on time, you got to know your stuff, you got to do your homework. And when you're in high school, a lot of kids don't do that. They barely do their homework for regular school, and they don't have the drive to just get better. I think that's something that I have. It's both a weakness and a strength is I'm very hard on myself, and I'm always, even when I feel like I'm here, I want to go even higher than that. So that kind of forces me to be better and be better. And a lot of people that I've been in bands with don't have that same drive, and that's okay. I rather them, be upfront and say they only want to do this for fun than, drag it out. And I'm like, I want something different, and they want to have fun. There is a difference. There's a lot of bands that exist that they just want to have fun. They just want to, play a dive bar, here and there, play covers and stuff. And that's fine, but I'm not trying to do that. I've always every band that I've been in, I've tried to basically make something of it. Whether it was, I used to play heavy metal, I wanted to really make something of it. But the people that I got with, they, at the beginning, might have had the same drive, but quickly they either got tired of it, they didn't realize how much work it actually is. Like, being in a band is like no different than, like I said, being in a business. It takes a lot of work. You're basically a startup, because you have to create a product. Then once you create your product, which could take years, you got to find a way to market that product. Our product just happens to be music. And it took us a lot of years, probably a good 2 years, to really figure out what our sound is, our product, and then how to market that. Luckily, my singer, the singer in our band, he's a marketing guru. Really, that's what he did. He does Google ads. He used to work for Google. He used to work for Cisco. He's a Bay Area tech bro, basically. By basically being like the creative director and him being the marketing director, we've kind of then fostered a musical startup in a sense that has then led to some success here in the Bay Area.
Yeah, I actually wanted you to get into that because you talked about there were 4 members. Then this would be the part where we put their faces up when you edit this later. So introduce your band members. Tell us who they are.
So it initially started with me and Richard. Richard is a guitarist. Richard and I used to play in a metal band for about 2 years. And he and I have always had a very similar music taste in that we both like heavy music, but we also like other things. We both very much like pop music. And so we kind of came together after our other metal band kind of faded away to really form something that was more accessible. I personally got tired of, I love heavy metal music. It's in my roots, but I got tired of like basically not being able to, tell my family or like come see the show or whatever. It's a lot of screaming. It's very aggressive music. I wanted something that was more family friendly in a sense. So I got together with Richard and we kind of jammed for a little bit in our rooms. Eventually we got some music going and we needed to get some beats basically. So then we went on a search to find a drummer. And the drummer that we ended up picking was the drummer for my brother's band. My brother was also in a band in high school, and his name is Max, and he's a very great drummer. He's a jazz head. He was like my first choice just because I saw him play in my garage, and he was very good. Subsequently, after that, we're like, all right, we need a vocalist. So what I decided to do was just like any normal band that I used to do in the past was just make a Craigslist ad. So I put out an ad on Craigslist, and here comes this, fresh out of college, frat bro. His name is Pat. He's here working in a tech company. He's into sports. He was looking for a band. It was just so happened that at the time I put the ad and he literally had just been here for like a month, that it just became a thing, and we've been together ever since.
And that's for the past 2 years.
We've been active publicly for about 2.5 years, I think.
Okay. First in Flight forms, and I know you've had some experience touring. I kind of want to get into some of those stories. And we're now in COVID doing shelter in place, so we should talk a little bit about that. But what was your experience like touring with First in Flight? Like how does that work actually? Like how does it work for you to book a tour? Explain that.
Well, there's a lot of politics involved in booking a tour. The higher and higher you get up the ladder, the more politics you get into when it comes to a band uh, taking you out on tour. In the beginning, it was kind of just like we wanted to go on tour. We had no other ways of doing it, so we just kind of booked it ourselves. We literally got on our laptops, picked some cities, and then kind of hit up the venues and hit up some bands. You want to play a show together? We're gonna go on tour, and that's what it was for like the first 2-3 tours. And then after that, as more people get interest, you either get an agent or you have a manager, and they're kind of like your way in to get bigger tours. So then our last couple tours have been a little bit of combination of that. Our last big tour was last year with a band called Finish Ticket. They're from the Bay Area as well. They're from Alameda. They took us out on tour, and it was great. I mean, they're actually an established band, so I mean, now you got to get involved with like contracts, and it becomes a little bit more detailed and technical. But after all that's done, it's fun as hell, to be honest. Technically, it's a vacation for me in a sense, but I always know what I'm doing every night. You know, I'm going to a show, so anything I do before that is kind of like free reign for me. So it becomes kind of like an escape, but also it also is work. I mean, you're on the road for 4, 6, 8 hours at a time, sometimes more. I mean, I know we were in Texas driving in the flood. We were on tour when there was a flood in Texas, so we were on the road for 18 hours because there was a lot of detours just to get to the next venue. But it's fun, and I mean, unfortunately now because of shelter in place, all our future shows and tours got pretty much canceled. And everyone's kind of just looking for 2021 for that.
On the last tour, how many shows did you hit? How many cities did you hit?
We did a circle around the United States, and I think it was maybe 13 or 15 shows, something like that. And we hit pretty much all the major cities. We started in Colorado, then, went through the Midwest to New York, down to Florida, passed through Atlanta, went to Texas, Arizona, then came back to San Francisco. So it was kind of like just a big circle.
And so are you opening for the band? Is that how it works?
Yeah, we were one of 3. They're usually a band that is more successful takes either 1 or 2 openers just to kind of, in a sense, kind of sell more tickets, or just to kind of have some buffer between them and them playing and, whoever else is there. Sometimes they might opt to have a local band. In this case, they didn't. They and by local, I mean local to the city. So they might book a tour, and they might book a band that's just already established there to then draw. But in this case, they felt they didn't need to. They just kind of took us on.
I'm thinking about the movie Almost Famous.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you've seen that. And thinking about the dynamic of the band, because I don't know anything about being in a band or a group. I've never done any of that. Within the realm of music, or within the realm of a group, there's like a star, or there could be like the person that's like especially talented. Like, do you think that it sounds like you guys have all the same mindset, but is there anybody in the group that you think like really stands out in what they do?
I think that just because of the nature of the beast, we have to have someone that's more marketed more than the rest of us. And in this case, it's just the singer. That's like the most obvious thing. But what makes our band a little bit special is that we do have a little bit of sense of individuality. I think that's what we strive for in our music. Is that a lot of reasons why I wanted to make a band like this is that I feel that bands went from having maybe one, like you said, 1 or 2 maybe like standout people, whether like if you think of like old school rock bands, like Van Halen, for example. Van Halen, the guitarist, is super popular, but then you had the singer as well, David Lee Roth or Sammy Hagar, who is equally as popular. Like there's a sense of individuality. Or if you want to even go like Kiss, a band where every member has a sense of individuality. Even older than that, the Beatles, every member has like a sense of individuality. I feel that as time went on, basically from the 90s and on, a lot of the bands uh, basically lost a sense of individuality, and it became kind of either just the group or just the singer, one member. In our band, we're a little bit different. We like to really put everybody in the forefront. Everybody on stage is a maniac. I'm headbanging. Rocking out. Our guitarist is rocking out. Our singer does backflips on stage. Everybody is doing their own thing, and it's not just about the singer. Even though it may be in marketing, he might be in front of us in like a promo photo, or maybe he just might be the only one in the post. But what and a lot of our fans like is that everybody in the band has a sense of individuality, whether it's on stage, the way we play, or just having our personalities be out in the open the way they are.
Let's talk a little about your process for making music. Do you have a routine, a schedule that you're following around how much time you put in practicing and all of that?
I don't really practice to improve so much anymore, just because I feel like I've kind of shifted my focus from becoming the best bassist I could be to becoming like a better songwriter. So most of our songs are written primarily by myself and our singer. Instrumentally, I write most of the stuff. He helps a little bit here and there, and he definitely does the lyrics and the melody on top of that. So I focus more on arrangements nowadays, and I'm primarily riff driven, and whether it's a lick or a bass line or something, just because of my background in heavy metal. But after that, after I find like a lick or a riff that I'm really stoked about, I then try and find like other chords that could then lead to some other part of the song, so then my singer can really uh, find a line to sing over. And he's really good
Mhm.
at BSing lyrics and creating melodies on the spot. That's kind of like why we picked him, is that he's really good at just creating gibberish on the spot. And most of the time, that gibberish uh, melody ends up being what becomes the final thing. I'm like a guitarist and myself are very good at just busting things out of our ass. Like, you need a riff? Give me a minute. I can give you a riff. Was it going to be the best riff in the world? Probably not, but I can give you a riff. I'm just at that level now where I can just create something. But it's not really like a set process. I think every song's a little bit different. And it's just, I think what ends up happening is whatever we end up doing is it kind of filters through myself and our singer first. Then we kind of bring it over to the rest of the guys, and they kind of give their input. And after that, we might have a song. We might have to go back to the drawing board. But usually it's just a combination of that.
I'm just thinking about going back to the drawing board, and like the debates that could come about through trying to get a finished product. It sounds like you guys are on the same page. You mentioned some very, very historic bands, and you talked a little about where you want to take First in Flight. Um, what's your vision? What's your aspiration for the group?
To make a career out of it. I think we're at a point where we're making decent money, but not enough to sustain ourselves. So like anything that we make, we just kind of reinvest. So we do pretty good online with merchandise sales. We get some money from streaming, and we have a few subscriptions that we have on Patreon that we get money for. But it all just gets reinvested. For every dollar we get, we're gonna just put it back. And at some point, it's gonna all come to a much bigger profit. But I mean, do I have dreams of becoming one of the greats? Yeah, sure. Anybody that is pursuing a career in this wants to be one of the greats, just because you want to see your dreams come true. But I'd just be happy just making a career out of it, in terms of I can sustain myself with music. It'll just open other doors for me, because then I can go into filmmaking if I wanted to. we've kind of, I think we've reached the point where we're past that local band status, and now we're beyond that, but now we're like a much smaller fish in the much larger, national touring artist. Like we're not local anymore, but we're like a very small little speck on the other grand scheme of the artist world. So right now we're just trying to compete in a sense. So what we're doing now is we're working with a different producer now to kind of get our songs to like a different, even more mainstream level, so that we can just compete with what's out there now. And hopefully then, we're not signed yet, but we're doing some shopping right now to hopefully get a record deal, get some money, put that into a product, and just basically just like a business, just like reinvest and hopefully grow. Like we've never been a band that's kind of wanted to become an instant hit, an instant viral success. I'd much rather be like very warm for a very long time and have like a trajectory of steady and incremental success, because I think that's what leads to just longevity. And because like a lot of artists get popular with like one song, where they have like a viral video on YouTube and they have their 15 minutes of fame, but they don't have like a follow up. Whereas us, we've had like I feel like we'll have like this long history of a backlog of songs. We have a YouTube channel with like 50 videos on it. It's not just going to be a 15 minutes of fame for us. Hopefully we might have a a one hit wonder, and we'll make our money off of that. But the goal is to have longevity and be able to sustain myself through that.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things though about some artists too, is that they may have one big hit, but they have like a core group of fans that will allow them to still tour. Like who was the group that put out Stacy's Mom? Remember that song? Stacy's Mom is God.
I can look it up right now.
Nah. Well, I was just making an example of like a group that could be
Fountains of Wayne.
right. They could have had like one hit, but if they put out a tour, whoever was kind of around that enjoyed their music, they may still be able to eat off their shows, And
Mhm.
but that like that mentality and that patience, because like with this podcast, because you and I, we talk about like oh, how do I get the viewership up? Like what is like I've been trying to figure it out myself. Like how do we break through? Because getting people's attention is it's a challenge. And what's going to be that thing that allows it to pop, right? Because you just mentioned going from local to being a spec in the bigger apparatus. You could be in the biggest band in the country, and I wouldn't know because I don't follow.
Yeah.
But I want all your dreams to come true, right? And
Mhm.
because one of the reasons why I really want that is because I see how diligent you are in the ways that you show up in the rest of your life. Because most people, they just want stuff to want stuff, but and it's very easy to just only commit yourself to that. But you're obviously very focused on that, and I wouldn't even notice in terms of like our working relationship, because it's always just on point. So I want people like that. I want people like you to get what they want, because like hard work and commitment and professionalism, I think, should be rewarded. So breaking through, like you're talking about the steady growth thing. How is that sitting with you where you're at? Are you frustrated? Are you like, do you have urgency? What do you think it's going to take?
There are moments of frustration for sure. But it's just a matter of reminding myself to have patience. And the numbers don't lie. You may think you ain't growing at all, but if you look at the numbers, and our singer is a spreadsheet master. He sends weekly updates on all our numbers, and if you think you're not growing, he'll tell you, we got 50 new followers on Instagram this week. We got like 1,000 more listens here. Like the numbers don't lie. So it's just a matter of having patience and really just looking at just the facts and the reception of the fans, and our numbers have been growing exponentially. This year, we've made way more fans that we would have ever aspired to, just because one of our songs really just took off. I think we have like 250,000 plays on it right now on Spotify, which is not a lot, again, but for someone that is just basically still new, it's a lot. But yeah, it's just patience, perseverance, and yeah, just attention, just to continue like doing what you do. Like I feel that even if I wasn't in a band, I'd probably still be making music. You know, I'm making music because I like it, you know. So, and if other people like it, that's just a cherry on top. I would still be making beats or writing other rock songs regardless. I
Mhm.
just so happen to think that right now we have something good, and I'm gonna basically ride it out until I feel like we've given it our all, and we just didn't work, and it's time to move on. I don't feel like it's time to move on yet, and I think that's like the hardest thing for an artist to kind of realize, is that you may not be where you want to be right now, but if you look past and you look at your numbers, and you look and you see the measurable growth that you've done, you can tell yourself like, probably shouldn't quit right now, because even though it doesn't feel like it, I have been growing. There has been actual fans that really are passionate about what we do. And I have people that have tattooed lyrics from our songs on themselves, either some imagery they've done. We get fan mail, like those quantifiable things don't lie, and they show that there has been growth, even though I personally may not feel it sometimes. And that's just what I
Mhm.
have to keep reminding myself, is that you just have to keep on persevering and not let what your idealistic goal is stop you from pursuing what good you have now.
Yeah. No, I think that's on point, and I agree. The when we were talking about when we were doing the in-person interviews for Cook on Monday morning, there was like this long gap, and I was telling you I was going to quit because the the audience wasn't growing the way that I thought it was going to. Like, in the level of prominence that some of the guests had wasn't translating to people like actually watching, So I was like, man, forget it. But then ever since the quarantine started, we've been doing like, hella episodes. I was just like, forget it. Like, I'm just going to double down because I actually do enjoy it. I do enjoy it. And I came across this concept called 1,000 true fans. You ever heard of that?
Yep,
Yeah.
that's a model that the band focuses on a lot.
Uh-huh. Yeah, yeah. So I just came across it, and so I was thinking about, okay, how do I get to that? Like, how do I get to the 1,000 true fans? And so instead of giving up, I decided to double down, and I appreciate you being there for this project as I've doubled down. As you know, I've been doing like these new closing out questions.
Mm-hmm.
I have a series
Yeah,
of
I already
them.
know which ones they are. So by all means, shoot.
Okay, what's the first one?
Top 5 artists, hip hop artists.
Oh no, I'm not gonna do that one with you.
I mean, you could. I mean, I listen to hip hop too.
Oh, well, okay, okay. All right, let's go. Top five.
See, I probably listen to rap for different reasons than you might, you know. Honestly, I could
Mm-hmm.
care less about lyrics. I'm not a lyrics guy. So when I listen to rap, I'm mostly looking for like delivery and like tone and just like vibe more than anything. For me, I mean, Beastie Boys are definitely up there for me, just because like they're just so weird. You know, their music is so weird. It's all over the place, but I love it. I really like Ice Cube just because of the authority that he has in his voice.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I grew up listening to a lot of Eminem, like a lot of people. And again, he has characters, you know, he has like different voices for
Mm.
certain songs, and I like that. I'm actually a big Digital Underground fan. Like the Humpty Dance just gets me
Yeah,
every single
yeah,
time. And then
yeah.
I mean, there's that one song they have with Tupac too.
I get around.
Yeah, oh, that's like there's just something about like their beats, like, you know, a digital underground beat when you hear one, and it's
Uh-huh.
dope. That's 4, right? Um,
Yeah, that's 4.
I guess I gotta pick someone more modern, but I also like Logic a lot.
Well, it's your list. You
Yeah,
you could if
Logic,
you want.
Logic. Just because, again, I just like the way he delivers stuff. I might get hate for what I say. I really don't care. I listen to a lot of different types of music. But those are probably like my top 5 for now.
I actually quote somebody from that "Get It Around" song all the time. I don't actually remember what artist said it. Oh, he said, I'm just another black man caught up in the mix, trying to
Hmm.
make $1 out of 15 cents. That's like my that's like
Hmm.
that's my
Yeah, it's
all
like
right.
it's about the struggle, you know?
These are, these are the new questions.
Okay.
Do you meditate?
Not really. I mean, I don't sit down and like go, I don't do that. But I do like to take walks alone.
Uh-huh.
And that kind of serves as my meditation. That allows me to kind of get into my head and really process a lot of what's going on.
Okay. You should try it. It's dope. What personal weakness can you forgive in someone?
I would probably say, I mean, it didn't used to be this way because I would have a lack of patience, but I think now it's like just ignorance on a certain subject or something. And I think that just kind of comes with me becoming more and more patient the older and older I get. I used to not have the greatest of patience back in like my younger years. And I would always just like, it'd be like, you don't know? What do you mean you don't know? You know, and that didn't really sit well with a lot of people. So I quickly learned to just kind of like be like, okay, no, it's cool. Like we'll figure it out. So probably that.
What is a book you would recommend?
Damn, it's funny that you asked me this question. I used to read a lot when I
Mhm.
was like 10, 12 years old. I used to read like a book every like 3 days. And
Mm.
then for a whole decade, I just kind of stopped reading until I went to college. Oh, I know a book, but I forgot what it was called. It's a book that I read in college. Yeah, I took a Hispanic literature class, and it was a really good book. That was about this guy who was basically in jail for a really long time. He just talks about like his journey getting out of it and how he's become a better person now. But I forgot the name of it. I will edit that book in now. Dude, that's a really good book. I read it in college, and I just like I usually just rent the books from like the library or whatever, but like, that book I bought. I was like, that's a good book. I want to
Uh,
reference it.
do you have a motto?
Done is better than perfect
That's a good one. That's a
because
good
I'm a perfectionist and I can really spend way too much time on something when it doesn't need to be, just because like what I care about, whoever's going to be on the receiving end probably isn't even noticing it.
one.
So obviously I try to do good work to the best of my abilities, but at some point, enough's enough. Just got to get it out there, whether it's songs, with videos, anything. Done is better than perfect.
All right. Final 2 questions.
All right.
Since you're probably the only one besides me that can answer this. What's
Okay.
your favorite Cook on Monday morning or Cook on Quarantine episode?
Besides the Jerry Rice one, I think that's just like a default. Because that was cool. It was cool to film it, and it was cool to edit it. I would think, what was his name? Was it Marquise?
Uh-huh.
Or was that his name?
Marquise Daisy.
Yeah. Just because of the topic of the discussion was basically on documentary filmmaking in a sense. And I just really liked hearing his journey and how he got into the field, and how he basically just kind of stumbled upon it and became successful. And I just liked hearing it. I liked editing it, and I know more about ESPN now or about sport documentaries that I would before. And right now I'm just watching The Last Dance, which is a great documentary series so far.
Yeah, I actually think that's one of my top ones too. I don't know if it's for the same reasons. I think I was surprised a lot during the interview, but I think that's one of my favorite ones. All right, last question. Who's going to win the presidential election?
I try not to delve too deep into politics just because it's just that I feel that if I go too deep, I'll like never get out of it, you know? And also I don't want to be a political band, but I'm hoping I'm going with another guest said, and that whoever runs against Trump's gonna win. I don't know who at this point, but that's just what I'm hoping. And
Uh,
that's what and
I think that was Charles Hudson.
and that's all I'll say about that topic. I try not to delve too
Okay.
deep into politics or religion and stuff.
Nah, I respect it. So, Mr. Topete, David Topete, is a incredible editor, videographer. He is a part of a growing band called First in Flight that is about to take off. First in Flight, I love you. So many ways to flip that. He's been
Yeah,
my
our
main
shirt's slogan is that they're soft as a cloud, which they are. They're really soft shirts.
Nice. David's going to edit in all of the information to learn about more about First in Flight. He's going to edit in a way to get a hold of him if you're interested in video production for your event, show. He can do it all. Just don't steal him from me because we still need him for the next, until his band takes off. He can't be stolen. He can do it all. So thank you, Mrs. Topete.
Thank you for having me.
Peace, peace. And thank you for listening to another episode of Cook on Monday Morning. At Cook on Monday Morning, we are building lives that make us excited about Monday morning. We believe that if we can own Monday morning, we can own the week. If we can own the week, we can own the year. And if we change our year, we can change our lives. So this is obviously a ceremonial episode 50. I got a good chance to get to know more about my partner and good friend, David Topete. He is a young man with incredible focus, drive, attention to detail. It's been a pleasure to get to know him. And, it's no secret, whoever I talk to about the podcast, I always refer David to them if they're interested in working with somebody to help move their production forward or get their production off the ground. So we're going to put his contact information on the screen. Hopefully you get a chance to reach out to him directly. I also wrote an article, how to start a podcast during the pandemic. And so we're going to scroll a picture of that article and put it on the screen. It has an overview of all of the equipment that I use and some things to consider if you want to start your own podcast. If you enjoy these discussions, please share them with a friend. Help us grow this community of doers. Please also take a minute to subscribe to the podcast on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Take a second to also rate and review it. Cook on Monday Morning is a product of the Luther Harris Holding Company. It's a boutique consulting practice that focuses on building strategic partnerships between businesses and government, recruiting diversity talent to companies, and helping advise companies on how to drive impact in the communities where they do business. If you're interested in learning more about that, don't hesitate to reach out. My email is info@Stevon Cook. And so I appreciate all the inquiries about our merchandise. It is still in production. We're a small team, so these things take a little longer than they should, but I appreciate those questions, and it is coming. Be sure to register to my newsletter to be the first to hear about the merchandise. You can register at stevoncook.com. I'd like to thank all the people that make our podcast possible. That starts with our listeners on YouTube. This past month, we had an additional 100 subscribers with over 68,000 minutes watched in this past month alone. That's the equivalent of about 47 days. And so, folks are growing slowly, but they're really diving deep on the stuff that we're doing. And I definitely appreciate your support, your attention. Please continue to share and like the content online. I'd also like to thank our guest today, David Topete, who was also our videographer. and our copy editor, Fernando Cinco Marquez, for editing the newsletter. I get up every Monday morning with the intention to create value and showcase my love to the people that keep our cities moving. They are our teachers, school lunch workers, custodians, social workers, firefighters, police officers, EMT workers, garbage collectors, bus drivers, and nurses. They are our employers, the folks that keep our economy growing and moving. They are our gig workers. They're stocking our shelves, driving our ride shares, delivering our food. To all of you, this podcast is for you. You live in places like San Francisco, Oakland, Richmond, Antioch, San Mateo, Los Angeles, Dallas, Houston, New Orleans, Baton Rouge, Miami, or Orlando, the Carolinas, Virginia Beach, Milwaukee, Kansas City, Cleveland, Detroit, Harlem, Brooklyn. And shout out to all of our listeners in Nigeria, Ghana, and Jamaica. The folks also in Kenya and Ethiopia. To all of you, this podcast is for you. This message is touching the world, and it will continue to because of you. Until we meet again. Peace, and we out.